travel outside of the United States, they have to have a passport.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Kelly again. Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I am going to take you guys with me to the airport, through the airport, and onto a flight from Seattle, Washington, all the way back to Washington, D.C. So I've gotten a lot of questions from people asking what the differences are between flying in Germany versus the US, and while I will say that there are far more similarities, there are some differences, and I think it can be fun to think about those differences or realize what they are. But before we get this video started, I just want to take the opportunity to remind everyone that every airport is different, and I cannot possibly address the nuances of every single airport in this video. I can't. But I will say that I've been on over 250 flights. I don't actually know how many because I just stopped counting at 250, and I've been to over 50 different airports. And yeah, I think that this video can be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to take you guys with me. So we're gonna head to the SeaTac Airport, which is the Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and I'll see you guys there.
All right, I just returned my rental car, and really there's not any difference with renting a car in the US compared to Germany or the rest of Europe, except for one big thing, which is the fact that in the US you're gonna get an automatic, and in Germany and Europe and pretty much the rest of the world, you're gonna pay a lot of extra money to get an automatic. So it's best to know how to drive manual if you're planning on renting a car in Europe, because you're gonna save a lot of money. I've been in airports that both have shuttles to get you from the airport to the car rental facility, and in airports where the car rentals are within walking distance. And a lot of the car rental companies are international. So you see Hertz and Avis and Enterprise and Sixt and so on in both the US and abroad. I've seen these types of cards in every single airport I've been to, and I think they're all even the same exact brand. Not only each airport, but each airline has a different check-in process. A lot of them let you do it online ahead of time, or you can use an electronic kiosk at the airport. It also depends on the airline and the airport, but I've seen it both in the US and Europe, where you print your own luggage tags and then give your baggage to an attendant. And I've also seen it where the attendant does everything for you. So if I'm traveling within Europe, I have to show my passport. But if you're an EU citizen and you're traveling within the Schengen zone, then you're able to just show your normal ID. But if an EU citizen leaves the Schengen zone, say they're taking a flight to the US or they're gonna go to China, then they have to have their passport. It's similar to like a US citizen being able to just show their driver's license in order to travel domestically within the United States. And then if they want to travel outside of the United States, they have to have a passport. The fun thing though about this driver's license getting you anywhere within the US is that is about to change. They're changing the requirements for what state driver's licenses have to have in order to meet standards for travel. And yeah, there are some states that don't meet those requirements. And so people, unless the state is changing their driver's license to meet those requirements, people from those states with those driver's licenses are pretty much going to have to buy a passport in order to do any domestic travel, unless they have some other identification that meets the standard. For example, I have a military ID, so I think Pennsylvania is meeting the requirements, but even if they didn't, I would be able to use my military ID to travel domestically. I would also be able to use my passport too, of course. So really I have 3 ways to be able to travel domestically. The other cool thing about having a military ID is that it actually gets me quite a few benefits at the airport when I fly. So not only do I get free baggage with a lot of airlines, but I also am able to get priority boarding. And then I'm also often able to get TSA pre-check or expedited security. And I've never noticed that in other countries, like their military members having any sort of benefit like this. I don't know if it's just not advertised or if it is and I just don't notice it. So I'm kind of curious, like, what country are you from, and do service members in your country get these sort of benefits that US service members get in the US? Oh, one more thing that my military ID gets me that I completely forgot about is access to USO lounges, which is right behind me. And the USO lounges are all different depending on what airport you're at. But usually they have computers and some snacks. They have free Wi-Fi, an area just to chill. Maybe there's a TV. And then a lot of times there will even be beds for you to be able to sleep in. It's all with the idea that service members travel a lot, both coming to and from deployments, or they're moving their families to a new duty station.
Pre-check only, guys. Boarding pass.
Okay, I just made it through security, which was forever long. And while waiting in line, I was thinking about how I don't really remember waiting in really long security lines in Germany. Never more than like 6 to 10 people. Whereas in the US, I feel like my common experience is waiting in long security lines. And I don't know what causes that. I don't know if there's just like little efficiencies that add up to huge time savers. I don't know. I don't know the job well enough. I haven't analyzed the TSA security measures, so I am not sure. But one big difference that I will say about going through security is that in the US, you have to take your shoes off and you put them on the belt to be scanned along with all of your other belongings, whereas in Europe, you can keep your shoes on. The EU has regulations that apply to all of the commercial airports, and I'm sure there are differences there between the US and the EU, but as the average passenger, I just don't really notice any differences. They both have similar body scanners or metal detectors, and they have similar restricted items, and I've had my stuff more meticulously searched in both the EU and the US for different reasons, and none that stand out more than the other. I'm getting through the very, very chaotic terminal to get to my gate, and I actually thought of another difference, being that in Europe I felt like pretty much every major airport that I had gone to, after you go through security, you're forced to walk through the duty-free shop. Which I found to be kind of annoying, and I always wondered if it would be rough to be traveling with your kids and having to take them past like giant candy bars and candies and all sorts of things kids love. But in the US, I really can't think of a single airport I've been to where you've been forced to go through the duty-free store. I mean, we have them, but you're not forced to go through them. Maybe certain international terminals that I just am not aware of, but I'm gonna chalk that up as a difference. The terminals all look more or less the same, just with different setups, and the size of the airport dictates how much ancillary stuff you see. There's always a collection of stores and bars and restaurants. I do think there are far more clothing stores and like luxury shops in the international terminals in Europe than what I'm used to seeing in the US. And I also more commonly see little smoking areas or like walled off smoking rooms in European airports than I do in the US. All right, so I'm at my gate and waiting to board, and my flight, I think I said earlier that it's late, but specifically it's at 10:40 p.m. or 22:40, which made me realize that that flight would not exist in Frankfurt Airport because the Frankfurt Airport shuts down at 2200 and doesn't open up until like 5 or 6 in the morning. I forget exactly what time, due to noise complaints. So there's a whole backstory behind it. I only know a little bit, but basically a lot of the people who live near the Frankfurt Airport complained about the noise, and they were able to get restricted times in place. So yeah, you can't fly in or out of Frankfurt Airport between 10 at night and 6 or 5 in the morning. And I didn't really think too much of it. It's just like, okay, that limits your flight options, whatever. Until Misha and I were flying back from Portugal one time, and we were supposed to land right at 2200, so like right at the cusp of the restricted time, and our flight out of Portugal got delayed. And I mean, it got delayed by multiple hours, but even if it got delayed by only like 20 minutes, it would mean that it could no longer land in Frankfurt. And so what they did was fly us to Köln, which is north of Frankfurt, to that airport, and then they bussed us down to Frankfurt Airport, which was like 2 hours away, and then we still had to get home, and it was kind of awful. For me, it wasn't too bad because I didn't have work the next day, but we got back at our apartment by like 5 in the morning, and poor Misha had to catch a train at 6:30 out of Mainz to get to Ingolstadt, which is where he was working at the time. So he was exhausted. There are noise restrictions just like this at a lot of US airports too. I just don't have any fun personal experiences with it or any sort of anecdotes to share. At Frankfurt Airport, I was always really excited to get to go to a plane where there was a sky bridge leading directly from the terminal to the aircraft, because more often than not, I had to board a bus just to get to the plane. In the US, I think it's more common to have a sky bridge, and then really small airports, just like in Europe, will let you walk from the terminal directly to the plane yourself. Boarding procedures are about the same, and some airlines both in Europe and in the US have fun little instructional videos to show the safety measures and requirements. But one thing I never saw on an airline in Europe that I see on a lot of domestic flights in the US is Wi-Fi capability. It can be expensive, but it's awesome to be able to plug into Wi-Fi and do work or whatever you need to do or want to do while being able to access the internet. In Europe, you can access like some entertainment packages to watch shows and stuff, but with the Wi-Fi in the US, you can use the internet just as you normally would. Like I keep saying, every airport is different, and at Washington, D.C.'s Dulles Airport, you often have to get on this little shuttle, which drives you to your terminal or baggage claim. I never got on like a free driving shuttle like this in Europe, but I often would have to get onto a little train that goes between terminals, and we have those in the US too. One thing that really stuck out to Misha when we flew to Colorado together a few weeks ago is how our baggage is outside of the secured area, which I actually never even thought twice about. So you leave the secured area and then you can reunite with your friends and family if you have that sort of thing waiting on you, and then you go and you can wait for your luggage together. In Europe, you wait to get your luggage within the secured area, and then you walk out of the secured area to meet up with your friends and family. And I'm at baggage claim waiting for my bag, and I couldn't show really much of the flight. Not that it would be that exciting anyway, but it was like dark because it was red-eye flight. Really no huge differences. I mean, I guess one would be that domestic flights within the US, the flight attendants are speaking predominantly English. I mean, I'm sure some of them speak some other languages, but you pretty much only hear English, whereas if you're flying in Europe, you'll hear like the language of whatever like country like that airline is based out of. So if you're flying like Lufthansa, you're gonna hear a lot of German, and also English. If you fly Air France, you're gonna hear a lot of French, and so on. So that's a difference. I parked my car in the economy parking lot at the airport so that it would be cheaper, and I have to get on this shuttle to get to the parking lot since it's a bit away from the airport. That's why it's so much cheaper. And one thing I see in the US and not Europe are cell phone waiting lots, which are areas where people who are waiting to pick up family or friends from the airport can sit and wait until they get a text or a call that their passenger is ready to be picked up, and it really helps to clear up traffic at the airport. Yay, I'm finally home after driving through lovely rush hour traffic in DC. And if you're wondering, why did you drive to the airport? Why didn't you take the train or something? That's because it's not an option for here in DC to fly out of Dulles International Airport. It's not an option. Whereas in a lot of cities in Europe, definitely the capital cities, you can very easily take mass transportation into the airport. So many have that option, and yet my country's capital does not. Apparently there's a metro line that they're trying to build out all the way to the airport, but it's running into a lot of issues and people are really upset about it. So anyway, driving to the airport it is for me for the next however long that I'm living in DC. Alright guys, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment about what differences maybe you've noticed that I missed, or maybe I got something completely wrong. If this is like your third video of mine that you've watched and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, just go ahead and click subscribe. It's completely free and easy to do. Turn on the notifications. It helps me, it helps you. That almost rhymed, or did it rhyme? It might have rhymed. I'm really tired, guys. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. You guys are the real MVPs, and I think I should go take a nap. Bye!